Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. Let's go back to school with Debra Adams, author of Adventures in Goose Park.
Actually, I retired from teaching 11 years ago.
Oh, geez. Where?
In Chicago, in the Chicago South suburbs. So I was in District 211. That would be like Olympia Fields.
Okay.
Very nice area.
What'd you teach?
I taught Spanish.
Okay.
So yes, I'm a retired Spanish teacher. But in the more recent years, working with children, I've taught from K to 12. Working with the children, this generation and the previous generation have had such a problem with reading that I started thinking, well, what good is it for me to teach Spanish if they can't even read English? So I went back, I got my master's a few years ago, and I wanted to learn how to write curriculum. So I have a master's in curriculum and instruction. And I started writing books that would work with where the children were. You really have to teach them according to how they best learn. And that takes a lot of study to be able to do that. And the books that we were using are like one size fits all. But what if I could do something to pull their interest more, even more so into what they're reading? It wouldn't just look so utterly academic. And that's when I started writing just little makeshift homemade books. I would print them, bind them myself, and bring them into the classroom, and they loved them.
But why aren't kids reading? There's a lot of great books out there.
There are.
Is it because parents aren't reading with them?
That's a big problem, where the parental support is a big problem, or parental investment in their children in so many areas is almost non-existent. And that's a huge problem for us, because it's to the point where a lot of younger parents, and I'm not talking across the board, there's exceptions everywhere, but in the public school, we find that there are so many parents that are working 2 jobs, and the children are on their own. So we have to make up for that when they come into the classroom. Now, what we're taught when we're learning to teach in college is that 80% of what the children learn is from home. 20% comes from actual interaction in the school. And we have to miraculously turn that 20% into 80.
And you suddenly start walking in with books that you're writing yourself. Why did the students like them so much?
Partly probably because I wrote it.
Okay.
Which made them take interest. And I put a lot of drama in my books.
Okay.
And not that there's not drama in other ones, but so often, the books that we have are books that someone else chose for the children. It's not that unless it's a book fair and they can choose their own, and that works well. They can read on their own. But as far as the classroom set, those are just regular standard reading books. Now, lately I've noticed that some of the stories are more interesting, but so often there would be more of deadpan, how do bees make honey type stories.
Right.
Yeah. And the children, how long would that last? 5 minutes of attention and it's gone.
Right.
And that's when I started writing my own.
Okay.
And so I would use animals to go through different, challenges, or have whatever I would do. I had to have some sort of moral to the story.
Okay.
So we could have a discussion after reading it or doing the exercises with it. And they really got more involved, and probably a lot because I wrote it,
right.
But they were getting more involved, and that was my goal.
So is Adventures in Goose Park, the book that we're talking about today, is that the first in a series or one of many?
It is my first book published, period. But yes, it is going to be the first of a series.
Okay. Well, tell me about it.
All right. Now, this what I'm about to tell you is not going to sound believable.
Okay.
But trust me, it is totally true.
Okay.
With no exaggeration. It was about over 20 years ago, and I happened to be visiting with some church friends down in Columbus, Georgia. And they took us, sightseeing around, and we went to this beautiful Shangri-La type of park. And while we were sitting there, looking around, it's enjoying the weather, and the park was just gorgeous. Um, a flock of geese were in the lagoon. And there was like one, like it looked like the leader of one was on the right, and he had his little amen corner behind him. And then there was another one on the left that was facing off with him, and he had his little amen corner behind him. And the two, literally, with the sounds they were making at each other, it sounded like they were arguing.
I know.
I had never seen anything like that before. I mean, it was like that kind of noise back and forth at each other. And each one had its own little group saying, "Yeah, that's right," And then one of them, the one on the left, I guess became angry, and he lifted up his wing and slapped the water right into the other one's face, and switched and swam off. And his little amen corner swam off with him.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
It's hilarious. I said, you'd have thought they had a script. And so I was mesmerized at that point. I was just watching. And about 15 minutes later, that same one that went off turned around and came back with this little group. And the one that he had insulted came out into the water to meet him. And they started talking in more softer tones.
Oh.
Literally. I never saw anything like that again.
They went to cool off.
And they talked in more softer tones. And do you know that when they were done with their little clicking and clacking with one another, they all turned together and became one group again. And the one that was so belligerent started following, like, I guess who was the real leader, and they all went to shore and started coming up out of the water together.
Oh, I just love that.
Yes, and that stuck with me.
For 20 years.
Yeah. And so about a year and a half ago, no, a couple of years ago, I started thinking about that again. And I thought about the geese, and I said, I don't think there's a story been written about geese. So I decided to make Adventures in Goose Park. And the first chapter talks about Kiko, a very wise and concerned leader of his flock. And there was one who was jealous of him named Tonka, who didn't want to be subject to leadership. And they fell out. They had their argument, and he splashed water in Kiko's face and turned and took his little group with him. The only difference, I had to add to it.
But so many lessons here. So many great lessons.
Yes. And so I have multiple lessons to be learned in each chapter.
Is there like a work thing in each chapter?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
So I want, from now on, the books that I write, I want them all to have language arts activities in them, and a scaffolding for discussion, talking about things in our life or the lives of young people who will be reading them. Because it's like, I would recommend that to second and third grade.
Right.
Yeah. And so for those that have read the story, what is your personality like? Is it like Kiko, Tonka, or one of the other characters in the story? Each one has a distinct type of personality, that works for the flock or works against it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest thing, wouldn't you say the hardest thing to learn how to do is to let go? When you're wrong, it's okay if you're wrong. It's okay if you made a mistake and you were loud. You can, you can go away, cool off, come back, say you're sorry, and move on. Don't you think that's the hardest thing, though? People hang on to anger. I mean, grown-ups could learn from this story. What are you kidding?
Absolutely. And you're right, because there's a thing called pride.
Yeah.
And pride is good in its place, So you take care of yourself. You might not, you don't let yourself be used or walked on or anything like that. Okay, self-pride or self-esteem.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's positive. But when that pride starts to bully others or to do wrong, and now you're too proud to take down
Right.
or to admit guilt, then we have a problem that affects everybody around that individual.
Right.
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 And in the book, that's exactly what happened. It was Tonka's pride that wouldn't let him take down when Kiko admonished him for things he was doing that was counterproductive for the flock.
Right.
And he wouldn't take down, and he led others astray because he wasn't happy, but he
Right.
couldn't have his way. So the others are ready to abandon him. And doesn't that happen out here in life?
It sure does.
Mm-hmm.
On so many levels. This is
Yeah.
so each chapter has a workbook. You discuss words, you discuss feelings,
Yes.
and like what happens next.
Okay, well, at the end of the book, they're getting ready to, they have their nesting time is what they spent in Goose Park. Their eggs were laid, the babies were born, they prepared them to get ready to learn to fly and be able to keep up with the flock when it's time to move on. So as winter was approaching, it was time to go. And that's where the book ended. And so hopefully when I got to sit down and start typing it.
Right, right.
Well, right. But when book two comes out, it will start with in the air, in their voyage, and things are going to come against them in their effort, excuse me, to make that new location for their summer home where they're headed. What type of things can come against them? Well, there's eagles, there's hawks in the air,
Mm-hmm.
there's storms. All kind of things can happen. If the young geese don't listen to the older ones, what can happen to knock them out of the air?
Mm-hmm. And formation. Their formations are so
And
everybody.
absolutely, their formation is very purposeful.
Right.
Hmm.
And
Oh yeah,
I think we need some good PR for the geese because, what's happened here in the Northeast, our winters aren't so bad and the geese, they used to go away. They don't go away. They kind of hang around. They're all over the sports fields. The kids, I remember my kids were little. They're slipping on the goose poop, right? Because it's
oh
all over the
Lord,
place.
no.
And then, the dogs come out and they run after the geese, which is good. That's fine. It's cute until, my dog grabbed one and this lady
Oh,
started screaming at me and it was just like, oh my God. And I'm telling my dog, stop the goose, drop the goose. And I was like, oh my God. They're fascinating to watch. They are
yes,
fascinating
they are.
animals and you can just see their family ties and they have
Yes,
emotions and they care about their babies and
yes,
but they're getting a bad rap, man. Getting a bad rap because there's just a million of them.
that's true, and that's where there's a problem because there's so many. Like you said, they're not migrating. Now, some still continue to migrate as their ancestors did, and the others said, like you said, "Oh, this is pretty good. We
Oh, we
can
like
make
it
this."
here. Yeah.
Yeah, why bother?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
especially if people give food to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we need some good PR. I'm glad
Right.
you picked,
Well, this book is definitely good PR and it makes you want to feel a little more um, benevolent toward the
That's right.
geese.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Yes.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, like, I talk to a lot of teachers that, because I don't believe teaching, it's not a job, it's a calling. So
Yes.
there's a lot of people like you out there who leave the classroom or they go back to school, they continue their education, they start writing children's books, they want kids to read, same thing that you're
Hmm.
doing, and they want to get a curriculum out there.
Yes.
And it sounds to me like that's not the easiest thing to do.
No, it's not.
Okay.
And you really need a team to do that because teachers we try to do those kind of things on our own,
Yeah.
and we don't have a team working with us. It's just ideas that we have, and we're trying to put it together. But there's too much involved for one person to try to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too much research that's needed, and not only that, if we're trying to, we have to, are we going to publish all of that?
Yeah.
What is it going to cost us?
Hmm.
Yeah, so a lot of people will just kind of give it up.
Yeah, but you're doing something in your backyard. That's awesome.
Right,
You know,
right.
do you feel like you're being supported? Do you feel like, I mean, are you able to actually sell these books? Like, did the school buy a bunch?
The school didn't buy a bunch. The school doesn't, that we're near the end of the semester.
Right.
The book has just come out,
Okay.
right, less than 2 months ago. So it's not for this semester for schools to really buy, but marketing over the summer
Mm-hmm.
and preparing for the fall. I'm looking to see a great sale. I know it's selling already because people are calling me and contacting me and saying, "Hey, I got your book. I love it." That kind
How do
of
they
thing.
know about it?
Oh, well, I've been putting it out there.
What have you been doing?
But before the book even went to print, I was sharing, that I was writing it, and the other little books, little homemade books that I've had. I even sold some of those to people because they really liked them. So they knew I was writing stories, and I started talking about Goose Park, while I was still writing it. And once I submitted it to Fulton, I said, okay, pray for me. It's gone in, you know.
Right, but
And
you
so
started talking about your book and you started talking about the characters and what you
exactly.
witnessed. Yeah, I try to tell people that and people they find that interesting, right? Your followers find that
Oh
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they've been following it. And relatives from who live in California, is your book out yet? You know, it's in a few more weeks. It's coming, and so there was an anticipation. And I have a pretty large following on Facebook, which is very convenient now, especially.
Right.
I have nearly 1,000 people that I have as friends. And they're, past students, other teachers, church congregations in other parts of the country, and all of
Oh,
that. But we keep up with each other. So now that's a beautiful network to begin to market my book, and that's
right.
not including what Fulton itself is doing, because they're marketing the book now. So
Right.
I'm looking for it to get very good exposure. And who knows, maybe one day Disney will pick it up and say, oh, this would make a wonderful animated movie.
Yes.
Yes.
That
Because it
would be
actually would.
fabulous.
It
Yeah, I bet
really
it would.
would make a good animated movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're still in Chicago
Yes.
area? Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you. Good
Oh,
for you.
yeah. Yeah, we're hanging in there.
All right. Yeah. With your don't you have a new mayor?
Yes, we do. So, and I'm active in the community too. So it'll be interesting to see how well he'll work with us. Anticipating, you know, some good cooperation.
I hope so. We
Yes,
we
I do
we
too.
need some cooperation
We
all over.
definitely do.
All
Definitely
over.
do. All over. You're right.
You're doing a great thing. You really, really are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Teachers need to hear that encouragement. You know what I mean?
My mother was a teacher. My
Oh,
brothers both were
great.
teachers. My sister was a teacher. My
Oh,
brother-in-law was a
wow.
teacher. Yeah, and then I tried to teach, and
Okay.
I was okay. So my first stab was with middle schoolers
Okay.
in a very wealthy school district,
Mm-hmm.
and they knew everything. And you know
Ex-
what the big thing was? I skipped a grade. I skipped a grade. I'm supposed to be in fourth grade, but I'm in fifth. And
mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I know about that. Yeah, I know how to do that. I was like, what,
Yeah.
what, what?
And and it doesn't and they don't have to be in a wealthy school district to have that attitude, believe me.
Oh man, you're the best.
Absolutely.
I wish you the best of luck, Deborah. You
Thank
go,
you so
girl.
much. I really appreciate it.
You have a great day.
All right, you too. And thank you again. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Brian Dalton is the author of our next book, Koji, Legends Never Die. You know what's cracking me up? Your name's Brian Dalton. Isn't there a Dalton Books?
There
Dalton
used to
Books.
be, well, it used to be Barnes, B. Dalton Bookstore.
That's
It's now
it.
Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Anyway, you write when?
During my lunches, well, we have like a mandatory 1 hour lunch. So instead of just wasting my time doing nothing, I created this amazing story, to dedicate to my idol, Kobe Bryant.
Oh, and it's kind of like a futuristic thing.
It is a futuristic book, yes.
What's that got to do with Kobe Bryant?
Well, I don't know if you know about this game with the Aztecs and Mayans used to play. There's many different names, but one of the names is called Puck, a talk, and it's similar to basketball. They use a rubber ball, and there's a vertical hoop which is made out of stone, and they imitated what they could from these foreign beings. What they, what also helped them, make the temples, and taught them about the stars. That's why their calendar was so accurate.
Okay.
Well, they were practicing this game, because they knew that there was going to be a test of humanity, someday in the future, to make sure, the human morals are like on the correct path and not going to be like, parasites who, like what we're doing to the earth right now. They don't want us to go out and destroy, the universe like we're doing to our own home planet.
Right.
So they had this game. It's not just a game of athletics, but also a game of morals to make sure, when we do go outside our solar system, we're not going to go destroy everything.
So this game is real.
It is real, yes.
And Kobe Bryant's connection to the game is real.
Yes, he's going to be playing the game as well as with the other 8 passengers of the helicopter. Kobe was just on a different level. I mean, his work ethic, I mean, was unlike anyone else. And if you ever watch his motivational speeches, I mean, his speeches are just amazing. I mean, it's like Barack Obama talking. It's so spot on.
So that inspired you to do this futuristic book.
Correct. And also, I grew up in LA, and I'm exactly 5 days older than Kobe. So he was 8, number 8 for the longest time, and 8 was my favorite number. I have like 3 8s on my birth date. He grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Right.
I spent some time in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania growing up before we moved to California. And now I'm stuck here in Charlotte, and he was supposed to be drafted first to Charlotte. So
you feel a connection.
I do feel like there's a connection. So this book, it takes place in 3012. And see, we misdeciphered. Everyone thought the Aztec and Mayan calendar ended 2012. Well, in my book, it's misdeciphered by 1,000 years. And so in the future, no one is prepared to play such an event like this, because on Earth, there's no one living on Earth except for people in domed cities. Going outside is not possible because of just how we destroyed our own planet with wars and plagues and just pollution. So everyone on Earth is living in domed cities, and the other better off, fortunate people are living in space. And so people haven't played sports in hundreds and hundreds of years. And eventually, 3012 Mayan Aztec calendar actually ended. In the book, that's when humanity is going to be put to a test by these foreign beings from all around our galaxy. And the game is based off what the Mayans and Aztecs used to practice, the Picatalk. So of course, people in the future, they rely on machines and robots to do anything physically. No one really plays any sports anymore. So no one's prepared. So they have this prototype time machine, which is it's run off of a piece of neutron star, which is almost a perfect sphere. And this neutron star, if you have it rotating at the right momentum and at controlled speed, it could rip a hole through time and space, and it can take you anywhere, anytime, in the world. And to me, I think, with that, it has a gravitational field, which I think, to me, gravity is actually faster than the speed of light. And so their intentions were to go back in time to get 10 NBA basketball players, since the game they're playing is similar. So their first choice was Kobe Bryant. And so they made the jump back to January 20th, 2020.
Okay.
And their intention, to get Kobe first and get 9 other NBA players. And they have these vessels. They're like human vessels where they can actually transport the soul of the person into these vessels. And these vessels will eventually adapt to their characteristics and their looks. But the thing about these vessels, they're all 6'6" tall. So they were supposed to go back and get all NBA players. So they're all the same height. And so there's a problem with a neutron star. There's a fracture and it's about to rip itself apart. So they only had time to make one jump. And that was, they got Kobe and decided to get the 8 others off the helicopter. And they transferred all their souls into these new vessels, into the time machine, which they had to take to the future to play this game against these foreign beings to preserve humanity. And if we lose the game, or our morals are not in the correct position, their plan is to destroy our sun. And that's why, like the Aztecs and Mayans, the sun was so important to them. They worship the sun,
right?
Because they knew about these games, and they were so smart about space and the time and the accuracy of how the planet rotates around the sun, and how they built everything, all the temples, not only just there, but also in Egypt.
Yeah, I mean, just go to Peru.
Right, right.
It's amazing the way they built these cities, and everything lines up with the sun and with the sun gate, and they worship. I mean, it's crazy.
And it's so accurate, with the winter and summer solstice. I mean, it looks like,
Yes.
on one of the stairs, it looks like a dragon coming down the stairs. And it's just, how did they do this? And obviously, I mean, to me, if you ever watch Ancient Aliens, maybe they had help from foreign beings.
Well, they thought that for a long time about Peru.
Right. And not just Peru, but also in Egypt, also with the pyramids.
Right.
And there's an interesting, these real hieroglyphics in Egypt. They're in a temple of Seti. And there's actually a helicopter, which actually has 9 slashes below this helicopter. And on the side, there's like looks like some spaceships and time machines over to the side. If you ever go to Wikipedia and look up Temple of Seti, helicopter hieroglyphics.
Right.
I mean, of course, they've been etched in, they've been recovered and etched in again, but eventually Mother Nature produced these images, what are on there now, to me, which is a prophecy of Kobe Bryant and the other 8 people on the helicopter saving the world. And if you read these facts about what these hieroglyphics mean, I mean, it's pretty much similar to what my book is all about.
Wow.
Yes. And also, if you look at it, Temple of Seti, SETI also stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which is coincidence or destiny.
I don't know. I don't know, Brian, but you sure give us something to think about.
Yes, and I promise after you read this book, you'll have doubts, thinking maybe this is actually what happened.
So does Kobe Bryant save the world? He plays this game, and that's the question. I have a feeling it doesn't end here.
It doesn't, no.
You leave us hanging?
Oh, yeah, because, well, to me, I mean, Kobe Bryant was everything to me. I didn't want him going out like this.
No.
I mean, I can't stand him not being here with us. So, with his book and other books to come, he can continue believing that he's still out there and still using, the Mamba mentality. And, but yeah, they're going to be on a constant search because that piece of neutron star they used for the time machine was very rare and impossible to replace. So they're going to be eventually searching our galaxy and the entire universe for this other piece of neutron star to get home to their family.
You must be telling people about this.
Oh, yes, I am telling people about this. I just need to get it into the right people's hands. And I'm supposed to be doing a book signing here in May. 2 weeks ago, I've been sending my books out to like news stations. I did 2 news stations in LA. Sent my books to these places, hoping to hear back from them. I have heard back from one of them, and
yeah,
I think he wants to read the book before he does anything else. But yeah, he called me. It was Jim Hill.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he called me immediately after he received the book. He's seen it on the desk, and he actually has done interviews with Kobe Bryant before. So I'm sure he's reading about it, and then he's
wow,
impressed that I did such a thing, in honor of Kobe and Gianna. And so, yeah, I did I sent one to Jimmy Kimmel and another news station in LA, because Jimmy Kimmel actually always did interviews, and he was actually there at the memorial there at the Staples Center. Also, I sent one to Good Morning America.
Okay.
And Inside Edition.
Okay, so what about locally, where you are, from people you know?
Yeah, Charlotte, North Carolina. It's hard to find major Kobe Bryant fans here. It'd be much easier.
Charlotte?
Yeah, I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, it'd be much easier.
Like LA. North Carolina isn't a big basketball state? Come on.
It is.
Yes, they are.
Maybe they're just stubborn to the idea. I mean, you got to find the right people.
Okay, so it just sounds to me you're really reaching, so you know people where you are, correct?
I do.
You know people, yes. They know people. This is this is what I tell everybody, just start with your own friends who like you, know that you're working your butt off trying to write a book, and gather them together.
Uh-huh.
and have them bring their friends together. It can be a party atmosphere.
Right.
It can be in a bar. It can be in a library. It depends on like your personality. Like what are you into? Some people have book signings in like the very hyper local bookstores. A lot of people come to where you are to go on vacation.
Right.
Right? I mean, I mean, I don't know. They might want to read a book on the beach. How well known are you in your community? Is there a local paper, even an online paper? I know newspapers are dead, but
Right.
that could do an article on you, because the Kobe tie-in is very interesting. But you surely don't need an interest in basketball to feel a connect to this story. This is like a futuristic. There's people out there writing stories like this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's not just, you don't have to be just a Kobe Bryant fan to. Hopefully someday they turn this into a movie, because this will be an amazing movie.
Right.
Well, we also do farmers markets. My wife, she has this earthly dressings, and I have the book and that I'm gonna be selling at the farmers markets. My wife, she has lots of friends, and people she knows.
There you go.
The crazy thing was, after I received my first books in the mail, the paperbacks, I went through Page Publishing. The next day, I gave some to my wife to go sell in the mall. The next day, Allen Iverson was in the mall, and she was able to give him one of my books to Allen Iverson.
Allen Iverson just happened to be in the mall.
Yes, he lives here in Charlotte, North Carolina. He visits Concord Mills Mall. Yes. Yes.
Said the man who doesn't think anything basketballish is going on where he lives.
Right. And
what are the chances of that? That's pretty funny.
I know, but he was in a rush, and he didn't want a bunch of people going up to him, but he didn't. My wife was able to hand him the book, and that was it. But we haven't heard anything yet. And
all right.
And we went to LA in January, and I put up some flyers around the Staples Center. Well, I know it's called the Crypto Arena now.
Yeah.
I always call it the Staples Center, but and I gave one to AC Green, which played with Kobe Bryant for 1 year. Before the game, you're able, every once in a while they have like a Lakers legend where you can take pictures with. Well, it was the time we went, it was AC Green.
Right.
And we got his autograph, and I gave him one of my books, so he has one of my books.
Nice.
Yes, and also I would like to say, Koji also stands for Keep On Giving Inspiration, which that was the most important thing to Kobe Bryant, was to inspire others to achieve their dreams. And it's short for Kobe and Gigi, his daughter.
Now, is Gianna a character in your book?
She is. She is the one who scores the last 2 points and wins the game.
Okay.
Yes. They're supposed to have 10 competitors, so they're already a man down, a person short. Okay. They only have 9 who are playing against 10 of these other foreign beings in this game. And it's a lot more advanced than what the Aztecs and Mayans played. They just try to simulate what what the foreign beings were telling them about this game. Right. But this game, what Kobe Bryant and Gianna and the 7 others are going to be playing, is much more advanced.
Okay. Keep making good use of those lunch breaks at UPS.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just using a Mamba mentality. I'm not going to waste my time and get it done.
No.
Try to achieve my dreams.
Good for you.
Being that there was always a B. Dalton bookstore, I always thought, I have to come up with some kind of book. And I've always been a good story writer. Just never really had a subject I was passionate about until now.
Well, there you go. All right, Brian.
I appreciate, yes. Thank you very much, too. Thank you.
No shortage of inspiration for Oliver Tyson. He's been a driver for the last couple of years, but a writer for life. He has published his 3rd book. It is entitled I Dream. So how did it work out for the other 2?
I didn't know how to do it. I was new to it. And so, yes.
So when did you publish your first book?
In my teens, later teens. It was not very good, but I was trying to do it, and so I self-published it, and I had no idea what I was doing, so it did not do well at all.
Right. So where did you get the idea for I Dream?
So I Dream is actually based off a dream I had when I was very young, and I tried to write it, and I could never write it. It's a very complicated book to write, so I kept trying, and then during COVID, when everything was closed down, I had a lot more time, and it just happened. I started writing, and I've actually finally got to write the whole story down.
So this story's kind of been with you for a long time, and we have, ladies and gentlemen, another COVID book. I can't tell you how many people were thinking about it, but just didn't have the time. And then COVID hit, and it was like, hey, I got the time. I got time to think.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Does it relate to your life in any way?
Not directly.
Okay.
No, like there's nothing that's like a direct from my life, but a lot of small things from people I've met along my travels and things like that. So it's about fate and faith. It's the story of people who are destined for greatness from before they actually achieve it, and it's in the process of their journey, and it's told in first person so that it can have an intimacy that even the people with them don't see, like all their thoughts and fears and insecurities they kind of put out where they don't even believe in themselves. It's like an insurmountable task kind of thing, and they have a hard time overcoming it. It's three stories. One of them is in an ancient land called Archaea, one is in more modern times, and one is in the future.
All right, so tell me about the first story. It's about a bastard prince.
Yeah, so it's about a man he just turns 50, and his father is impotent. He couldn't have children, so he got lucky 50 years ago. And then so he grows up. The bastard prince grows up knowing that he's going to be king. And then on his 50th birthday, his father impregnates another woman, and this woman is royalty, so the child is going to be the heir now.
Oh.
So instead of waiting, as he's done his whole life, he needs to step up and act on it. And so he does something kind of vile. He hires someone, a witch, to poison the woman and kill her. And this first time he's ever actually done something real in his life, it makes him want to really take the throne. And so he launches this kind of conspiracy to push himself into the throne and change the story so that people aren't just talking about the guy who just kind of happened to be king. He wants to be regal. He wants to earn it.
Okay, so that's
his journey.
So that's the first story, and then the next story is about a woman.
Yes, well, I see it as a woman. For the middle story, I try to keep the gender kind of vague. It's written in the first person, so I want the reader to kind of feel like this person as much as possible.
Okay.
So that's what I try to do. I don't know if it comes across. I always saw it as a woman. So, but yes, it's about a woman, and she meets somebody in a bar, and they go for a walk, and they go to a library, and they find in his back end section pretty much a portrait of her a very, very long time ago. It's like almost like a doppelganger, but it's more than that. It's like a reincarnation kind of thing. And so she's kind of launched on this journey to find who they are, the connection, because she feels a connection, and it's like a touch of magic that she finds in her life, and she has to hunt it down. And it's a major thing because it requires like packing up everything she owns and traveling to a different country if there's never been, and hunting for something. And so it's this major event, and she doesn't know if she's enough for it, if she has the strength for it, the intelligence for it, or even if there's anything real to it. So it's like it's a journey that starts on something that she doesn't know if she believes in. Really, it's the second story is most about doubts than anything.
Okay. And then what happens in number 3?
So the third story is about a young girl in the far future who is writing. The third story is told as a diary. So she's kind of keeping a diary, and she's in an education system. So the world is kind of it's a one world government called the state, and they suppress history and knowledge, and they have this concept called approved history, pretty much the only source of history. and it's not real. It's kind of made up to like inspire people and things like that. And she wants to become one of the writers of approved history on this group called the historic text. So she wants to be one of the people who rewrites history, and that's her aim. That's like the highest career you can have. And in this world, this is after a book burning, and books are illegal. So one of her classmates drops a book and has one. So she tries to like bring him back to the lawful living by like abandoning. Pretty much he has an illegal item, and she wants to help him through his illegal things. And she's kind of pulled into the world of almost like it's a drug thing, like it's illegal, and the story is told from her perspective. So she doesn't approve of the life, but as she learns about like real world history and real world art that she's never heard of, it kind of entices her. Yeah, the third one is kind of hard to explain. I'm sorry.
No, that third one sounds scary because they're getting rid of books and they're rewriting history.
Yes.
That's frightening.
Yes, it is.
Isn't that frightening? I mean, we kind of have a little bit of that going on right now, don't we?
We do. But I want to tell a story about it from a perspective of someone who agrees with it. She confronts it and tries to come to grips with it over her story. But at the beginning, she completely agrees with rewriting history and how history needs to be controlled. And when she's confronted with a whole different way of thinking, she tries to merge the two of them. And that's kind of the story about it, because she has like this massive destiny in front of her, because she's very smart and she's very studious. She has perfect grades. And so she's pretty much going to become one of these important writers of rewriting history and choosing what is remembered and what is not.
Okay.
The story like what she's going to represent when she gets there. She knows she's going to get there. But over the story, she contemplates what she's going to represent when she gets there, and who's actually good, what's right and wrong. And yeah, so that's the story.
And what all of these stories have in common is perseverance, overcoming difficulty, finding what your purpose is in the world.
Yes, very much so. And they are also tied together. So the woman in the future is studying history, and key part of history is the bastard prince, who he starts a conspiracy, he starts a war, a lot of people die. And so she's studying him and seeing how these wars are terrible things and we shouldn't have them, and history shouldn't be taught about these people. So that's what she thinks. So she's studying him. And yeah, so they are connected, and all three of them have connections that way. So right. Yeah, but there are also individual stories. They don't technically know about each other, and they're just kind of going about their own story, but there's an overarching theme. It all ties together really well. So yes.
That's very exciting, Oliver. And when you're driving around and you're chauffeuring people, do you talk about your book? Do you say, hey, I'm more than just a driver?
Not too often. Every once in a while. Sometimes people ask and we get into conversation. But yeah, I'm trying to push it. So mostly online, because I technically don't have too many friends, and they all already bought it, but there aren't that many of them, so it's not really. And I don't have many friends who are like real readers. So yeah, so most of it's online, a little bit in person, but.
Is that working out for you? Are you able to get some attention?
It's still early in the process. I have submitted it into a London book fair that happens later this month, and that's like the first major thing it's going to be in. But I have a couple other things going on. There's an advertisement for like on social media I'm going to put it into. So yeah, I'll see.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you're moving along at your own pace, and good for you.
Yeah.
Did you have a better experience with this book than you did with the other two that you self-published?
Yes, definitely. The first two, I had no idea how anything worked. I kind of thought you just published it and it would just kind of sell, apparently. So I didn't do any marketing whatsoever. The first two weren't really about making sales. I just wanted to be a published author, and so I just kind of pushed them. This one, I went with Page Publishing, which is a much better company, and I also purchased their higher package, so they do a lot more with pushing and marketing the book, and I'm actually marketing myself. So it's been much better, but hopefully I'm going to see results very soon.
All right, Oliver. Well, I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton-Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime you want on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.